So let's create a song. There we go. Now, as I said in the previous video, it takes you to the sort of place that you were in last time. So I was obviously doing a keyboard part last time. So let's just select that for now, which will bring up a keyboard. Each of the instruments that you select from that previous screen, which I'll go back to in another video, brings you like a user interface that's appropriate to that instrument type. So obviously we've got a keyboard here, but I'll come back to that in a moment. That's not for this particular video, because just to start off with, I'm going to show you around the main sort of interface and where all the main sort of buttons are and where all the sort of settings and functionality is to start with. So to get to the main sort of window that you're going to be coming back to a lot, you want to be pressing this button with the sliders on here. Oops, sorry, not that one, the one next to it with the white lines on top of each other. Pop. That takes you to a sequencer window. Now, if you've used a digital audio workstation or a music production program of any kind, the timeline view, the time goes from left to right, the tracks are all on top of each other, and this should be pretty familiar. But again, where do you start? This was another thing that kind of turned me off a little bit when I first started to see that GarageBand was actually looking like a viable music production platform on the phone. I just didn't really know where to start. Then I started experimenting, and then actually found it's pretty easy to work your way around it. So we'll go from left to right. So to start with, this little button here, it actually takes you back to the new song and the file page. So it automatically saves where you're up to, so that you can just go straight back in and open the track up again. Or you can obviously create a new one. But if I did that now, because there's nothing in this track, it would just take us back to the screen we were just on, and there wouldn't be anything to see, so I don't need to do anything with that now. This one here is the instrument select button. That's what we saw before. Again, I'll go through all of these in detail, but basically if you scroll through, you can see that there are lots of different types of instrument that are available within the app that you can choose from and build a track out of, as in an individual part. So let's just go back to my songs. Oh, hang on, didn't mean to do that. Let's create a new song. Keyboard. Okay, so there we go, up here again. That's a little bit waste of time, sorry about that. So yeah, you've got your instrument types. Then this is the one that toggles between sequencer view and sort of input mode, keyboard mode or wherever you are. So that's just sort of, it's either interface or edit sequencer screen. Then you've got the settings, and this is a really cool part of each track here, because this is where you select the sound that you're going to be using for the instrument. You click on that there. It brings up a list of different types of sounds. Now, it defaults to a particular synthesizer, which is extremely powerful, called Alchemy, and a whole bunch of presets which you can change around as much as you like. But actually, there are a whole load of other ones as well. Synth classics, synth bass, leads. These are all presets, but they're all pretty handy. But again, I'll go through all of those in detail in a separate video. Track settings, you don't really need to worry about that too much, because you can. These are just edit things or set up things for recording. I've never used the recording function apart from the sampler, which I'll show you in a future video. Transposition just allows you to change all the notes on a channel in a particular way, and quantization sets the time. It corrects your playing to make it fit the beats in the bar. Again, I don't even use it on that screen. There's an easier way of doing it. So what else do you have? You've got your main track volume. You've got pan, which is left and right. You've got solo. You've got mute, solo. Plugins and EQ, again, you can go into more detail on each one by just clicking through, but I never do. Basically, you've got a compressor, which is quite handy, treble and bass, which is very handy, especially for rolling bass off of sound so that you don't get too much rumble and boom and noise and rubbish in the background, or treble just to kind of bring out some of the top ends of things like hi-hats, cymbals and sort of zingy synthy sounds. On every track you also have master effects. it's default to echo and reverb. Again, it comes with a bunch of presets for each of those two things if you want, but to be honest, they're pretty good just on their standard settings. If you're only using this as a sketchbook, it's just, you can use the delay or the echo and the reverb just to give a little bit of extra spice or flavour to a track, but you don't really need to be super editing it into major detail, because you do that when you export it into either the desktop GarageBand or Logic. So yeah, that's really where you've got most of your sort of detailed settings per instrument. If you then wind this across here, what you'll see is you've got a little sort of mini version of that previous screen. It's sort of the same, but you've got just the three functions. One is just the mute, the other is the solo, and the other is the volume. That's just so that you don't have to have all of those screens open if you don't want to. And again, you just flick that open just to fiddle around with the volume and whatnot if you want to. So that's the left-hand side of the screen. In the centre, it's very straightforward. You've just got rewind back to the beginning, play, record, metronome. If it's blue, it's going to click. If it's white, it's not going to. Loops, which I will come onto in a separate video, but it's basically a library of pre-recorded loops and settings that you can import into your project, which I never do because I tend to do all my own stuff. And then critically, you've got the main track settings on the far right hand side. Now, metronome accounting is completely self-explanatory. You probably never need to change that. But tempo, time signature and key signature are really important. Tempo is obviously how fast or slow your song is going to be, and you just wiggle your thumb up and down to make it faster or slower. Time signature, 4/4, which is what most music is. 3/4 if you want something a bit more waltzy. Bum, jing, jing, bum, jing, jing. 6/8 can be useful for sort of transitions and turnarounds in a track. I haven't actually used 6/8 time on anything in GarageBand, but I might do actually, just to check it out. But let's just stick with 4/4 for now. Oops, and then key signature. This is a very intuitive and very cool way of setting the key that your track's going to be in. So you've got all the notes laid out here: D, D flat D, E flat E, F, F sharp G, A flat A, B flat B, and then all you do, major and minor, is you just press the button to make yourself either in the major or the minor, and then you just select which key you want. Other systems are a little bit more fiddly than that, but this is super easy. So with it set to E minor, you press done, and that is a track set up and ready to record. So that's what we'll do in the next video.